And if you didn't recognize that, that's the intro for the show we're on, Paranormal. But did you notice something else? Did you see that wonderful background that we started off with?
Look good.
It did look good. Let's see. We're going to do it like this. So, Ghost of Guilford Courthouse. We're going to be talking about that here in a little bit. Still not used to the camera not being. I just got to remember opposite. Okay. So we will be talking about that in here in a moment, and we just got to say welcome to everybody that's here.
Hi,
welcome everyone.
Welcome, Jake.
Thanks for having me on the show.
Yay! So excited.
And now we can put faces with the voices. Woohoo! No, sorry.
I was going to do this whole show with a fake voice. You know, people be like, who's this new guy with 5 Paranormal?
Yeah, exactly.
He sounds a lot cooler than the other guy.
I did get word that Facebook has been having issues with the videos. So if anyone is having a problem with seeing the video, please go over to TMV Cafe's YouTube page, and you will be able to watch us there and comment there as well. Heads up, because I don't know how long it'll be there and what, because I don't know what's going on with that. But I do have some interesting news that I would give to people. If you, it's embarrassing, but if you ever think that an expiration date is a challenge, oh yeah, your body will definitely tell you that. What I mean is, after the show last week, I was just sick. I couldn't take it. Had a knot in my stomach, and I just felt like losing lunch. So routine is we make a hot toddy. I was raised with this hot toddy, and it takes some lemon in the hot toddy. So I have this nice big bottle of lemon, and I pour in the lemon juice. Drink it and go to bed with some Tylenol, which actually is what kept fevers down. But it just kept tearing me up, and I kept doing the hot toddy every day until I think it was maybe Wednesday. Wednesday is when I talked to you, right, Annie?
Right.
Yeah. So Wednesday. And I pull out the bottle to make another hot toddy, because at this point I'm running 101 degree fever, and it's like, okay, gonna do it in Tylenol. And I mean, I just pour in get ready. I actually did pour in the lemon juice, but something told me to look at the bottom. So I look at the bottom of it, and there's an expiration date. It expired in 2018. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Can lemon juice go bad? Oh yes, it can.
What Sarah says, keeping lemon juice to yours. I don't use a lot of lemon juice. I know it's there because I buy it and I keep it in the fridge as a staple, but I never thought about it either. Okay, and
I'm going to answer this question. She asks, I don't know how he kept lemon juice 2 years old.
It is an accomplishment.
Right. That is a true fact. It really is an accomplishment. But we don't use it that often. So
right.
It's in the door of the refrigerator, and it doesn't click to think about, oh, hey, yeah, this isn't, let me look at the bottom of that, or wherever the expiration date is. Unfortunately, this one was at the bottom. So yeah. Lesson learned, if you don't want to be sick, make sure the expiration dates are right. Yeah, I'm kind of curious how to say that last part there.
Limoncello?
Is that what it is?
Limoncello?
Limoncello?
I'm just grasping at straws here.
Hey, it's better than
I'm not even going to attempt.
There are no wrong answers here.
Yeah, exactly. I've done so many crazy things in my life. This is one I never thought of. So yeah. But we are visiting with a gentleman from Fife Paranormal. I almost said the wrong name. Somebody had been telling me wrong name.
I know. I can't read. I have this reading problem.
What are you gonna say?
Fike.
Fife.
I don't know why I got stuck on Fike. I know who you are.
Right.
There is a Fike Paranormal so in case you didn't know,
really?
there really is. Yes. So I'm like, wait, this doesn't sound right. I'm reading them. And I'm like, oh, that can't be them. So, this is a father and son team.
Yep.
Now, very not uncommon, but very rare that it. From what I see, it's only you and your father.
Yes, it is. We do have people that join us on cases and certain projects, but for the most part, it's just the two of us.
Right. And
That's a nice thing to do to share,
Yeah, it's
why
pretty
not?
cool.
I like that.
Yeah, I mean, most father and sons, they go fishing, go hunting, build, model cars or something. We hunt ghosts and go to creepy old hospitals and battlefields and stuff. And
right. And
it's a lot of fun.
It's the best thing to talk about because you're jumping right in and hey, we need a conversation starter. Man, do you remember that haunting over at yeah.
That's actually how I start all conversations, actually.
Oh.
Not really.
Nothing wrong with that. Nope.
Yeah, you remember when Mom's oven mitt jumped off the stove? Yeah, I did too. That was a frog. Oh, yeah.
Frog.
That's where he was.
Okay.
No, I have to ask because you guys have been doing it for a while now, and we've had you on the radio portion before. So, out of curiosity, for those that are new to it and watching, how did you get started?
So basically, I've had paranormal experiences all of my life. My earliest life memory is a paranormal experience. And growing up, in southern West Virginia, it was a very Christian and conservative area. So whenever someone would bring up the paranormal or ghosts, they'd be ridiculed, they'd be talked down to, or, in my case, they'd be hushed up. But I was lucky that my parents were very open to it. And if I had questions, they would try their best to answer them. And so as time went on, I had more and more experiences and I had more and more questions. So when I got to age 10, we had just moved to the house we're currently in Virginia. And we had some very, very strange experiences. Hearing footsteps down the hall. We all witnessed while watching a movie, a kitchen drawer open by itself, sit there for a few seconds, and then close. And there are many more experiences that I had personally. And so finally, I asked my dad once on his day off, I said, I have questions. And my dad had been an investigator for a very long time. And so we just had a nice discussion about, what am I experiencing? What's going on here? I want to learn everything. And that's basically how it started was, he would tell me stories, his theories, the stuff he knows. And then because I was homeschooled at the time, I would go online and I would just spend hours and hours researching. And slowly, I would read all these articles, watch YouTube videos, for literally hours and hours, 6 or 7 hours. I would just sit there and just process every theory I could find, every explanation, every haunted location. And finally, at about the age of 11, I was like, you know what? I want to investigate. So instantly, I looked at the biggest, scariest places in America. And most of them, you had to be 18 years old to go. And being 11, I was like, well, that kind of sucks. I got 7 years before I can actually do something. So I was clearing out our spare room where we had a bunch of old stuff that we had brought over from our old house. And I actually found my dad's original ghost hunting kit. And this is probably late 80s, early 90s. So it's a lot of really cool, vintage, as it would be probably called, equipment. Old cassette recorders where it's like it looks like a brick. And you would have to load the cassette into it. You've got an external mic that sucks. It's poor quality, but you plug it in, position it properly. And that was my first EVP recorder. Probably my first 20, 30 EVP sessions, I recorded on cassettes. And that's really, really cool. But I would do stuff outside the house. We live in a very old house, actually built in around 1879, 1880. And there's an old kitchen that sits off to the side, old caretaker's house, old barn. So I would take, his old K2 meter. I actually don't know what it's called, but it's basically a K2 meter. And then this cassette recorder, and I would just do these sessions, and I would hone my craft. And, as I got more experienced, I would start getting more voice recorders. I actually got my very first one at the age of 12. My uncle gifted it to me for Christmas. It was an Olympus voice recorder. Really, really good recorder. I actually still use it for note taking. I don't really use it on investigations anymore. But I would go out to these places and I would do literally 10 or 15 EVP sessions per day. And I would study, audio tricks, how to tell when something is a paranormal voice, when something's caused by environmental factors, whether it's me doing an inadvertent noise, I don't remember, but I inundated myself with all of this information. And slowly I started expanding my research, my investigations, and I didn't really start investigating bigger name locations until about the age of 16. And it's kind of progressed from there, from not just me looking for answers, but also helping people out, because I've never investigated a residual case myself, but I have consulted on many, many cases.
What I have to ask, because you said you've researched some of the places that you've gone to and stuff, and what is one of the most memorable places you've gone to?
So probably the most memorable for me is St. Albans Sanatorium in Radford, Virginia. That is hands down the scariest place I have ever been to. When I first went there, it was April 2nd, 2016. I was in military school at the time, and I remember the week leading up to that event, I was a part of a radio network. I had my own podcast show at 16, and they were like, hey, we're getting all the hosts together, throwing a little event. You want to come to one of the most haunted places on the East Coast? Of course, I jumped at it. I was pumped. I had so many notes on this entire wall. I had at least 60 notes all over where Jim Morrison is now. And I went crazy with the research. And that's basically how I do it with every case. I look like a crazy investigator, that meme where, it's a crazy conspiracy theorist. He's got the whole wall of notes. That's basically me before every investigation. Right. But that location still holds a place in my heart simply because I had my serious experience there. And also I kind of feel like I cut my teeth there. And that was my first time in the deep end of the pool. My first time investigating a location that didn't have just regular spirits, people that were once alive and now dead, but also negative entities, whether it be demonic, negative human spirits, and then elementals. So, I learned so much on that first investigation and the subsequent investigations of St. Albans that it holds a very special place in my heart.
Nice. That's awesome.
Yeah, I was watching the YouTube this afternoon with your investigation with St. Albans.
Oh, thank you.
With the EVPs.
Mm-hmm.
They were good.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I have so many files on that place.
The spirit box.
Yeah, see, there's a questionable one right there, because I always wonder about the spirit box. I think at one time it was the Radio Shack hack.
Yeah.
And they still do this today, is it still considered credible? That's the real good question.
I don't know. I have got one that's that Tom got me for my birthday for Christmas a couple years ago. That is actually a 2-in-1. Plus, it does
is it PXV11?
I think it might be. It's in the we don't do anything anymore for right now, but
it's kind of hard with
I mean, true. I can't even get to Gettysburg, for crap's sake.
I know. See, I have dream places to go. I really do. My first place I want to go, without a doubt, hands down, is going to be
New Orleans. I know.
No. You should remember.
Well, I know Gettysburg, but
The Shining.
Overlook Hotel. Yeah. That's a good choice.
Yeah, always a good choice.
And then Gettysburg would be mine.
Yeah, well, you just got to move outward,
Yeah, but you think about it, everybody hears all the different stories. I mean, Waverly is a great one. Then you have the Winchester Mansion, which, oh my God, put me in there for a night.
I don't know about that one, though.
I was about to say, I'm not too big on the Winchester House.
Thank you.
Well, see,
not either. It's like I don't see how. I don't know.
They say you can still hear the construction going on.
Well,
Which is
that's
cool,
just
just whenever
residual.
Yeah, whenever I look at pictures of the Winchester house, I just do not get a haunted vibe from it. I guess
Thank
it's also
you.
where
I
they
don't
really
either.
commercialized it and hyped it up. But
Yeah,
when I look at that location, no disrespect to that, those people, they do a great job with it. It's
Yeah.
just, I see it almost as like an attraction, almost like how I would view an amusement park. Now, that's not to say it's not haunted and that, presented the opportunity, I wouldn't investigate. I would love to. But I
Yeah.
just, if that was my first choice, it wouldn't be my first choice if you were to ask me where I'd want to go.
Just
Yeah.
like a certain bar or establishment that they hype up so much.
Oh yeah.
I will not mention, but
Yeah. Look, if the only thing you can tell me about that place that you're mentioning is that jukebox kicks on a certain song, or we follow a particular group who you did not get to see, so we don't know quite what happened. But
I'm sorry, there was like absolutely no feeling there at all.
well,
Nothing.
I didn't have it. The only thing I did was die in laughter when the guy darn near ran over the cameraman. So, I mean, you want realism? That's about as real as it's gonna get. You get the scared out of you in the dark, you're gone.
Yeah, sometimes you forget that you're supposed to look all serious, and so you even forget you have a camera. You're just running.
Right?
It's your fight or flight, and 9 times out of 10, you're gonna choose flight.
Yeah, exactly. It's going to become a Blair Witch film in a moment.
Yeah. No, I just. I did not get anything at all. My daughter, nothing. Just I wouldn't even waste my time.
Yeah. Well,
but I don't want to say anything because it's such a big place that everybody. Oh my God! No.
Well, okay, look. Since Winchester's kind of going through the chat room at the same time, and we kind of touched it for just a brief moment. The only reason it has any interest in me is I did construction. I did remodeling. I know those sounds. I want to hear them. I want to be able to record them just for once. I don't care about anything else because any place can be haunted. We know this because the last house I lived in was haunted. Bless you.
Thank you.
So we kind of were the same way. We had the situation where we didn't have the support to kind of pull everything together. I didn't have a team at the time, and so I couldn't do nothing. I couldn't, but the most I did do is we definitely blessed the house, but it teaches you when you go through something like that, especially when you're half asleep and something's happening.
Yeah. You'll wake up real quick.
Yep. And the haunting stuff is not the first thing in your head. It's like, who the heck is in the house? So let's see.
And see, real quick, that's something funny. You always see the memes and stuff about people getting tired late into investigations. I get more energized towards the end of investigations.
Yes.
I am that annoying person that at 3:30 in the morning is like, come on, guys, let's go. We got this. It's just ramping up, and everyone else is on like their 10th cup of coffee. They're all slumped in a corner sleeping.
No, that's me. I get energetic too. So here's a question. Does Jake support the theory that activity can be found anywhere if you look hard enough?
Yes, I do. I have seen this on many, many occasions in many, many random locations. I believe the spirit world is all around us. I'm not going to say it's necessarily a part of our world. I think it is something slightly separate. But I do think you can pick up paranormal activity anywhere potentially. It all depends upon what equipment you're using, what are the environmental settings around you, and then how open are you to receiving paranormal activity. Because if you bring out a spirit box or an EVP recorder and you say, hey, I want to talk to ghosts, come here now, but mentally you're thinking, oh, nothing's going to happen, or I don't want to experience anything, then you're creating a mental block. And spirits, regardless of how strong they are, they will not be able to get through that block. So you have to say it that you're willing to accept paranormal communication and experiences, and you also have to be committed. And that's one of the things my dad taught me early on, is regardless of what you hear, whether it's a claim, someone just experienced something, or what you think you just experienced, always keep an open mind that anything, anywhere, at any time is possible. So yes, I do believe in activity occurring anywhere at any time.
Yeah, exactly. And she kind of puts that a mental block changes energy output. So yeah, I I have to agree with that too, because okay, let's go with the theory of, if you go looking for something, you're going to find it. We know this
Right.
concept is almost in everything. If you're going to look for trouble, guess what you're going to find?
Yeah.
If you're going to look for food poisoning, well, wait, sorry, that's a whole nother
I
subject.
was going to say, you already found that.
I found that.
You just stumbled upon it. That's
Yes.
all. Poor darling.
It's funny too, because we were just going through the pantry not that long before, pulling out food, making sure the cans weren't expired, or if they were, we're writing numbers on top so we know. And yeah, who knew that? Anyway,
Now we know.
yeah, now we know. But okay, maybe that would be considered laws of attraction. I could also say that would go with what's his name? I can't think of it now. It was there and it's gone. If anything could happen wrong, it would.
Murphy's Law.
Yeah.
Murphy's Law. There you go. Murphy's Law. So, I mean, you could, it's all within it. Relativity is a theory that, they came up with just because get hit in the head with an apple. Oh, hey, there's gravity. There's this, what is this thing? I mean, there's another one too. How did he come up with the name gravity when we've been on Earth for a lot longer? But no, okay.
That's a whole nother ball of wax.
Why did they take so long? No, I'm just kidding. So yeah, you guys have, I mean, a great deal of things going on. Again, like you mentioned, Annie mentioned, the YouTube page.
Mm-hmm.
So this brings me to the wonderful picture we put in the background here.
I'm so excited.
And so, of course, the first image that I want to bring up is this.
Yeah.
What?
So beautiful that it looks like the Matrix.
Yeah. So what are we looking at? Could you tell us I mean, obviously it's a reenactment, but
no, I actually time traveled. That is a live battle that you're seing from 1778.
Far out.
No, this
take me with you.
Everybody else just said, what?
I just told all the soldiers, because the battle stopped. They're like, hey, who's this dude with a huge gun? I was like, yeah, don't mind me. Go back to killing each other in straight lines. But no,
this is you'll learn about it.
You'll figure it out.
Yeah.
So this is a still from my upcoming documentary, which I just announced a few hours, actually 4.5 hours ago. I announced that it's going to be Ghost of Guilford Courthouse. And it's going to be a historical/paranormal documentary and investigation of the Guilford Courthouse battlefield, which was the turning point in the American Revolutionary War and actually saved, the American Revolution from crumbling. So what you're seeing right here is a reenactment from the Battle of the Hook. I believe this was 2007, I think is where this is. And when I was working on this documentary, the early bits of it, I contacted about 40, I think it's somewhere in the 40s or 50s reenactment groups and said, hey, I'm working on this project. Do you have any footage, without bystanders or anything that I could use in my documentary? And this is one of the ones that someone, I think it was from the 6th Virginia reenactors group. They sent me this that was actually shot by someone who was unable to participate in the battle, but they got some really good footage from this event.
I have this one crazy question.
Okay.
What the heck is this guy doing?
So that looks like, I think that's artillery. That is artillery piece. Those are, I think that is a 6 pound, that's either a 6-pounder or a 3-pound grasshopper. And they called them because when they would fire, they would hop back like a grasshopper. And there's actually a shot. I don't know if I included it in the announcement teaser, but there is a shot where you actually see it firing, and it looks really cool. Actually, that cabin that's there towards the end of the reenactment, they actually set it on fire, and it's really cool looking.
Oh, wow. Okay, so now we're into another image.
So this was sent to me by the 6th North Carolina, which they have been really cool, helping me out so far. Shout out to the 6th North Carolina. This is actually from, I think it was 2014 Guilford Courthouse reenactment. Now, the battlefield is huge. And this is, I think it was 2013 or 2014, they actually started doing the reenactments on part of the actual battlefield. I went to the battlefield reenactment. I think it's 2011, 2012. I remember I was very young, and they had it on some field near a high school. And this was the year that they started doing it where the battle took, like close to where the battle took place. This is what you're seeing right here is where the separate action would have taken place, which actually where my ancestor was. But this is Continental regulars from the 3rd line squaring off against British regulars that are assaulting the 3rd line. And this is actually part of about an 8-minute piece of reenactment footage with really good sound that I was sent.
Wow. I would be amazed to watch that because, you know, the reenactments really make a different feel than actually just like watching a program or something.
Right.
Really, I agree.
Yeah,
No, you said your ancestors. My ancestors were from Virginia too.
Oh, nice.
And I know that they fought in the Revolutionary War. In fact, I got all this stuff over here.
That's really cool.
Over there.
Yeah, I won't
But
I won't break out my book and talk about my guys.
yeah, so you know, and I'm always into the Civil War. That's my thing. But I really need to start getting in more into finding out about the Revolutionary War.
Yeah, the Revolutionary War. I don't know. I mean, I like these. I like these reenactments. Okay, if you want to know, I support renewable energy. It's called coffee.
Yes. Okay, we all agree on that one. Okay.
So, Guilford Courthouse. What can you tell us about the courthouse? Or is that just the area?
So originally in 1781, it was Guilford County, and it was a little community called Guilford. You know, go figure. And there was a 1-story log cabin structure, and that served as the county courthouse. So this is part of the British Southern Campaign, which starting in 1778, 1779, they theorized that most of the people in the southern colonies, which is North Carolina all the way to Georgia, was more than likely loyalists, which meant that they were loyal to the crown, you know, King George III in Britain, and that if they took the port of Charleston, South Carolina, which was the richest port in America at the time, that they would have all these people from the backwoods and communities would flock to their ranks, and then they would invade America from South Carolina and just march state by state until they got to Washington and New York and just crush his army. That was the plan. Now, What they didn't count on was creating a civil war. And that's why out of all Revolutionary War topics, the Southern Campaign is by far the most interesting to me, because when the British got to South Carolina, it was a civil war in every sense of the word. You had literally towns versus other towns. You had brothers versus brothers. I mean, you had one town that held a grudge against another town because, you know, someone stole land 30 years ago, and they would take up arms and, you know, kill 40 people from that town in the name of independence, even though they knew nothing of the cause, really. And the British, you know, after they took Charleston, they're like, oh, crap, we've screwed up here. And they tried their hardest through 18th century warfare to stamp out this little civil war that they had started, and they never could. And even the Americans didn't know what to do. But they relied on people such as General Francis Marion in South Carolina, General Andrew Pickens to kind of quell it just enough to where the Continental Army didn't have to worry about it. And it's just, I could easily talk for hours about some of the crap that went down. But basically, it was a lot of murder. I mean, you had people that would be defined as serial killers, probably by today's standards, that were given command and just did terrible things on both sides, American and British. And the British, a few years into about 1781, they've suffered some humiliating defeats, because you have to understand, 18th century warfare was very much a gentleman's game. You know, you did it with honor. It was like playing a game of chess. You know, there were certain rules you had to follow. You had to be, you know, a gentleman basically about it. It's really weird, but they saw it as a game, and these people's lives were just their pawns.
Right.
And so in South Carolina and a little bit of North Carolina, you know, the soldiers started saying, you know, we're not pawns. In fact, we can, you know, rise up and kill you at any moment if we really, really wanted to. And so some terrible defeats, terrible things that happened. The British basically said, you know what, screw the Carolinas. We're just going to chase Nathaniel Greene, the Continental officer who had replaced Horatio Gates after the disaster at Camden. And Greene led them on this really cool cat and mouse chase. It's called the Race to the Dan. And basically it started in northern South Carolina, and it was a race to the Dan River in Virginia, which is close to Guilford Courthouse. And Guilford Courthouse was the final battle in that campaign. And what's interesting about it is Greene knew he couldn't win a battle against the British, because mainly he had militia. Militia were not good really against regulars. And
Right.
Greene knew this. So he figured that if he could get Cornwallis and the British Army away from their supply lines and then send little partisan troops to interrupt those supply lines, he could dwindle their numbers to the point to where even if they did score a big victory, they wouldn't be able to capitalize on it. They would have to retreat at some point. But he couldn't find the right time or the right place. And it was after the Battle of Cowpens, where Daniel Morgan defeated Lieutenant Colonel Bannister Tarleton, that Greene felt like he had the advantage on his side. So he was going close to Virginia, got to Guilford, was looking for reinforcements. And it's actually a Quaker community that was there, and they wanted nothing to do with the war. And he was mainly there for reconnaissance and then, you know, resupplying before crossing the river, the Dan River. And then he got word that, hey, you know, Cornwallis is literally 3 miles down the road. And so he quickly scouted out the courthouse area and said, this is where we'll make our stand. And that's basically Guilford Courthouse, is the final stand in Greene's master plan. And it worked perfectly.
Wow. That's amazing. I love the stories of the different battles and, you know, the history behind it. And man, you've really done some research on that.
And I can
I
sit and
could go
listen
into
to you
depth.
for hours if you want to talk about it.
I mean, it's interesting because, you know, I've studied the Revolutionary War for years and years. You know, living in Virginia, I'm closer to Civil War stuff, and I've been to all the Civil War sites in the area. But there's something about the Revolutionary War, especially Southern campaign, it doesn't get the credit it deserves, because that's truly where you see the American spirit, and basically the formation of America was in that Southern campaign. And, you know, there are so many interesting figures that, you know, funny figures that don't get their just due, American and British, because, you know, it wasn't so black and white. There is a story that was never, ever told, because that was where the American propaganda machine really started. And it really dominated the storyline of the American Revolution up until, you know, even the 20th century.
Right.
And so I'm doing all this research, reading these books. I'm like, wait a minute, the stuff I heard growing up, that's not what really happened. I'm like, it wasn't so black and white. It wasn't so obvious. You know, everything was up in the air for about 3 or 4 years. And Guilford Courthouse is the final battle where all of these personalities, all of these situations, they meet in one place. It's almost like, you know, Endgame, where all the Marvel heroes come together, all the bad guys come together. This is where it took place, and that's why it's so interesting. And the fact that it has so much paranormal activity, including a really cool Headless Horseman story, it's just icing on the top of the cake for me.
Well, I do know that there was a good question that came in earlier that says, did you have a spike in paranormal activity in the area after the reenactments?
I actually don't know. I've never investigated Guilford Courthouse. I visited there 3 times that I can remember. And each time I didn't have any of my equipment with me. So I don't know if I'd be able to answer that, but I have talked to reenactors that have talked about having some experiences there.
Right. Does this make you want to kind of go and do that now after reenacting?
Oh yeah, it's killing me. And it's weird because this is about the 3rd week that I was scheduled to go down to Guilford and film. But it seems like every time, literally the day before or 2 days before I'm about to go film, something strange happens. And, I'm not one to get paranoid about this or kind of, oversell this kind of thing. But it is starting to feel like there is something that doesn't want this documentary to be made. And it's really weird. I don't know if it's a mental block, but, at first I thought it was a mental block because something that absolutely would not have happened under normal circumstances happened. And so I cleared all my mental blocks. There are a few exercises that I do. And then I had 2 other very strange things happen. So that makes me want to go to Guilford even more to try and figure out, why doesn't this story want to be told? What am I not supposed to find out?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, there's a lot hindering that by the sounds of it, and I would be like you as well.
It's weird.
Yeah, what the heck's going on over there? What is it, Annie? We've talked about this triangle up in Gettysburg. What is it called again? Is that
the triangular field?
Yeah, that's it. The triangular field.
Yeah.
I have pictures of that all over the place.
Everybody who says they go there says that it, like, their cameras might
the batteries drain.
Yeah, batteries drain just like instantly. And I'm wondering if you would be seeing the same situation should you go, to check it out yourself. Would you be going through that as oh, hey, this happened, now we can't go?
Yeah, I'm fully expecting, once I get there, because it's about 3.5 hours from my house. And I'm already coming up with contingency plans for, if one battery fails, these are my backups. And I'm literally having to go, check all the check marks that I didn't think I would have to for this project. Because, I honestly thought, and this is probably my fault, but I thought that there would be some issues with this, but I thought it would be somewhat of a smooth filming, day. I was planning on spending about 6 or 7 hours on the battlefield because, like I said, it is a good-sized battlefield, and just knock it out in one fell swoop. And then there are some places in other locations I do plan on filming for this documentary, but I had a really good outline. Actually, about looking at my notebook, about 6 pages worth of outlines. And it seems like everything that could go wrong has gone wrong with this project. And I'm still struggling to figure out why.
Right. Yeah, I would be the same way as well, because something doesn't want you to go. So for those who might tune in just now, we are talking with, of course, Jake Fife of Fife Paranormal, and he's talking about the upcoming documentary Ghosts of Guilford Courthouse, and we're stoked to talk to him about it because, of course, anyone who knows us knows we love talking about history anyways. But also we're this documentary, as soon as it's done, you're going to try to get it out there and get to where people get to see this. But out of curiosity, now that we mentioned the paranormal side, the investigative side,
it's a hard word.
Yeah, it's all together on the tongue. It don't work. Are you planning on maybe adding that as a addition to that?
I am thinking about it. I've gone about 4 or 5 rewrites of how I want to style this. Originally, it was going to be, 50-50 history and paranormal. But the more I think about it, the more I'm probably going to do 60-40 history and paranormal. And it's interesting, this is my second documentary film. The first one was a paranormal documentary filmed in Martinsburg, West Virginia back in August of last year. It was the Martinsburg Roundhouse, which I actually went with one of my friends, and that was a really cool experience. And then also, it was my first documentary, so it holds kind of a special place. But
well, why not make it a 2 CDs?
I mean, that is something I thought about, but I want to take a different approach with this because there is a lot of historical information to take in here. And so I don't want to just, go heavy handed on the history and then, so that people get bored and they might click off. And then by the time you get to the paranormal part, people might have forgotten the history. So what I'm thinking about doing is I think I have like a 5 or 6 act structure. I have introduction, quick background, and then first line, and I'm going to do history, paranormal claims, investigation, and then second line, history, paranormal claims, and do that with each line of battle, and then do that with a separate action, and then at the very end do, kind of like a wrap up style, and then evidence review. And that's probably how I'm going to structure this project. That's how I have it right now. That is subject to change. But I think that's the most cohesive way of telling the story so that it's not too heavy. It's not too top heavy with history and it's not too bottom heavy with paranormal.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I still look at these reenactors and you just can't, you'd almost swear you're getting a picture right there during the event, the actual event, not not a reenactment. It's like, ooh, how did he get on the field at that time? Yeah, is that time travel? You forgot. But yeah, I mean, of course, we're seeing bodies on the ground, and the great part is it's not like the actual Civil War that some of them were the bloodiest. I mean, they always talk about some of the bloodiest Civil War events, and the first thing you think about is, oh my God, reenactment. How do they? And I wonder if they try to do those particular reenactments. It's like, throw something out. Okay, this is what the field looked like, and
yeah. I mean, it is kind of tough to recreate some of these, landscapes because it has changed so much over the years. Like, Guilford Courthouse, if you look at Google Earth images of it right now, it looks, like straight up woods out of West Virginia. But during the battle, it would have mainly been farmland with some copse of trees here and there. But it's very different because over time, people move on. And, life goes on. People move away from the area. And then, of course, as Greensboro grew up around it, people started abandoning Guilford. And that's one of the reasons I think it was 1880s. No, I think it was 1791 when the courthouse burned. They just kind of said, we got Greensboro. We don't need to rebuild that. And that's one of the interesting mysteries about Guilford Courthouse that I'm going to try and solve is, where is the courthouse? Still to this day, they have spent millions of dollars, universities, the park itself, the government, trying to look for the original spot of the courthouse, and they have not been able to find it. And
wouldn't they have city blueprints from back then, kind of like some kind of map?
I don't think at that time, simply because it literally was a log cabin. And then I think the closest one was maybe like 3 or 4 miles away. It wasn't an actual town like, we would think about. It was just, it was someone's house over there that they decided to hold their meetings in. But what's interesting, there is a battle map that was drawn up by a British engineer the evening of the battle after everything had calmed down. And he was actually sitting on the steps of the courthouse when he drew the map, and he drew the original battle lines, where everything was. And I think that'll give me the best chance of finding the courthouse, because what's interesting, you have the historic New Garden Road, which snakes up through the center of Battlefield. And then you had, I think it was the old Salisbury Road, which was used as the American retreat route. And it's well known that Nathaniel Greene stationed his men about 50 to 100 yards in front of the courthouse, and then they used the road next in front of the courthouse to go back to Virginia. So in my mind, I'm thinking, okay, if you can just find, where Salisbury Road meets with New Garden Road, in theory, you should be able to look 50 yards, north, actually it'd be southeast, and you'd be able to find the courthouse. And I guess they haven't done that yet because they still don't know 100% sure where Salisbury Road was or the retreat road was. They have some theories, and there is new evidence that might suggest where it is. So I want to use those maps, and then also I want to use, the spirits to try and find this courthouse, because they were there, when it was a functioning courthouse. So they would know better than anyone else.
Sorry, I was coughing and turned the mic down. Yeah, exactly. I did find what some people might be considering a image of that time, and now this is a rendering, obviously, so it's
Right.
not the actual ordeal, but this is
Yeah, I think that's the Quaker House.
the Quaker House. Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
because after the battle, they used the houses in and around the area, and there was a little Quaker community. There's only been one rendering that I've seen of what the courthouse looked like, and I can't remember the name of it, but I think it's called Nathaniel Green drawing up his battle plan. It's him standing in front of it. You see soldiers passing by, and it's, the courthouse is in like a little wooded area. There's a road in front of it, but it literally looks like a small log cabin. Very, very unassuming. But you have to understand back then, those kind of places were courthouses. It wasn't these big grand structures that we might have today. It was any place that they felt was safe enough to meet at, because in certain communities, you still had to worry about, Cherokee Indians, different Native American tribes. Now that there, I think, is the Hodgkins House, which is where Cornwallis drew up his first line. I think it was Joseph or Jedediah Hotchkiss, his farm. He was very much against the British using it for battle, but they kind of said, hey, we've got about 5,000 troops, we kind of outnumber you. So they used his lawn to form for battle. And actually a bunch of soldiers died near where that cabin is whenever struck by American artillery.
So this cabin, this isn't just like the one that they burned. This is an actual standing cabin still today.
Yeah, to my knowledge, I think that it is the original. I might be wrong, though.
Okay. Well, I mean, it helps to, we look at these and we say, hey,
Right.
And you're like, how the heck are you getting these images all of a sudden?
Google's a powerful thing.
Yes, it is. When you get reenactments, now I wanted to bring this one up because I love, like I said, being there is, seeing a reenactment in play is so much more different than hearing it or watching it.
Right.
Look at this. I mean, what an amazing shot.
Mm-hmm.
You're seeing the blast of the cannon. Now, if you've ever been when a cannon's gone off, there's not a little like
Oh, it's loud.
It's loud.
Especially those larger rounds.
Yes. And you feel that air resonate with that boom. And it'll get you.
Yeah, it is funny. When I was at military school, we would do our big ceremonies. And we had this cute little cannon. It was so small. It looked like you could literally pick it up yourself, one person. And we had this cadet detail, and I always wanted to be a part of this, but I never was. But they would load the cannon. They would actually fire it to signify the start of, the parade or the review. And which of those were so much fun. But, you would think, oh, it's going to be, a little poop sound or something like that. But no, when they would fire that thing, oh, it was loud. Oh, yeah. It was loud. And you're sitting there like, how does a small little gun that's literally like this, big around just make this huge sound?
Exactly. Some more of the reenactments. How do they, when it comes to reenactments, how do they get enough history to come up with like the uniforms almost spot on?
So usually there's usually a detailed list, whether it was by the I almost said commissary, but it's quartermasters of the time. They can actually, I think they trace the original orders and the original descriptions of the uniforms. And then there are, especially from the Revolutionary War period, there are contemporary drawings and paintings of what these soldiers looked like. And of course, we have some surviving uniforms that are in museums, and that kind of gives us an idea. And typically it is really cool. Part of gentleman's warfare is you have to be very detailed with your correspondence. Right. And so, I've run across a lot of examples. Like we ran across Henderson's regiment in their bright blue and white uniforms with gold buckles on them. And, they had to be descriptive. for stuff like that. And it's very useful for reenactors. And these are people that dedicate their lives to researching not just the battle, the history, the soldiers, but also the clothing of the era, the etiquette of the era. And it's truly remarkable what these people come up with.
Well, see, this gets me because, we think about, Paul Revere is right. And it's, and then you also remember the saying, one if by sea and two by land, or I can't remember.
Yeah.
I might be saying those in reverse. So, but then Paul Revere's quote was, "The redcoats are coming."
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so we know the redcoats as being British. And so when I asked you the question about the coloring and the uniforms, one question came to mind. This is one of your images that they gave you. And here we are, wonderful guys in blue, that they're this. And then, wait, what? What are you two doing there?
So certain people in regiments, sometimes the fife and drum corps and certain officers, they would actually wear red. And then there were certain officers that would wear red. And it's interesting because you have to understand that a lot of the American officers, actually not a lot, some of the American officers, including George Washington, they had fought in the British Army, either in the 7 Years' War, or they were just, enlisted in the British Army. And so, it wasn't like when the Revolutionary War started with Lexington and Concord that Congress all of a sudden said, all right, we have, thousands of blue uniforms we just happen to make, in our spare time. Here you go.
Yeah.
They really ask people, you kind of have to clothe yourself. And so these people, to show that they have rank or they have seniority or power over others, if they had these specialty uniforms, they would proudly put them on display. And sometimes they would wear them throughout the war. And then also, they didn't really wear rank on their uniforms. Not all of them did. Some of the ranks did, which I know if you look at modern military uniforms, you look at Civil War uniforms, mainly for the officer, you can see kind of the shoulder boards or some things on the collars. They will, have certain insignia to say, okay, this guy's a sergeant, this guy's a colonel. In the Revolutionary War, that wasn't always the case. Sometimes it was, more times in the British Army than the American Army. And so sometimes they would wear specific uniforms for certain duties within a regiment. And what was very important about that, a lot of people don't understand, it was against the rules of war at that time, which is kind of, oxymoron when you think about it. But it was against the rules of war to kill certain ranks. Usually it was NCOs, officers, generals, colonels, stuff like that. You couldn't kill them. But if everyone's wearing blue, how are you going to know who's who? So they would have different uniforms, or they would have, a white plume or something like that to signify, hey, this is an officer, don't shoot them.
Interesting. Wow. That's pretty cool.
Have you ever thought about teaching history?
I've thought about it, but I don't think I'd have the patience as a teacher.
I don't know.
I did terrible in school to begin with.
I don't know.
So.
I can just sit here and listen.
If you listen to yourself, okay, you're going to have to go back and rewatch. As you're talking history here, you're into it. And
it's
I
very
can see
important.
you as a professor talking history and just.
I'll take your class.
Yeah. So before we run out of time with that, when should people start? Well, not when, where should people start looking for this documentary?
So I'm planning on releasing the documentary the last week of February. I haven't nailed down a date yet, but more than likely it will be either a Friday or a Saturday that it will be released on. I am going to have a bunch of videos leading up to it on the Fife Paranormal Facebook page, which you can find us at facebook.com/Fife Paranormal. And then also on our YouTube channel, which is youtube.com/Fife Paranormal. And then also post on Twitter and Instagram under the Fife Paranormal name. And I'm going to have a lot of stuff scattered throughout the weeks. Probably towards a little after Valentine's Day, I'm hoping to have the first official trailer for this posted. So keep an eye out for that.
Interesting.
Will do.
Yeah, definitely. I'll have to tell you about how you can put them on DVD so people can. I mean, you really are dedicated to the history of it, and I like that. I mean, it really shows. Now, I'm going to ask you probably a question that hasn't come up. I didn't notice it in any of my message boards. So, do you do the same kind of investigation for your when you go to investigate a property, like a potential haunting?
Yeah, well, I'm one of those people that I go crazy with historical research. There's kind of two camps. It's either you do no historical research, you just kind of go in blind and be open to anything happening, or you go crazy and do a lot of historical research so that you have a planned series of questions to ask. And I fall into the latter camp. I always go crazy with historical research. I go to county courthouses, as many records as I can find online, because all the claims that I see of a location, I want to prove them or have an actual historical basis that I can just pull up, a file from some courthouse and say, hey, this is the basis of this claim. So we know, this person actually lived here at such and such time. And I do that whether it's a battlefield, a documentary, investigation episode, Bigfoot, Mothman, a cemetery, any place I investigate, I research it to the nth degree.
And she says, congratulations on your success.
Thank you, Sarah.
That you should write a book.
That is something I plan on doing at some point. I've tried 4 or 5 times to write a book, and I'm not a very patient person, I'll admit. And I have had a lot of issues. I usually get about 2 or 3 pages. I'm like, I'd rather just, sit in front of a camera and talk about it. I'm a bit more of a visual presenter.
Yeah, it's easier to do that and then just
get
everybody into it. It's like when you start talking about food, you just
here we go again. So we always have that segue into food.
Yeah, but think about it. You write a book, you don't get the mouth watering.
Unless it's a paranormal cookbook.
Ooh.
It could be Jake Fife's, experiences and recipes.
Haunted.
No, hold on a sec. Jake Fife's experiences and edibles. There we go.
That's good.
There we go.
Yeah, he's gonna win that to the 420 crowd. No edibles. We need those.
They'll be sorely disappointed.
Right. All these stoners. Oh man.
Oh man.
I know what my next cookbook's gonna be called. Yeah.
Mm-mm.
I actually am working on one, but it's just slow. Okay, so we've mentioned, and for those who hadn't noticed, we do have the Facebook page scrolling across the bottom. I usually try to find the one that gives everybody your overall. So then that's why I chose that one, so we can get them directed to where you want. And then, of course, as you said, you're putting the promos up there too.
Yeah. I actually just released the teaser video for it today. It is up on our YouTube channel, and I highly recommend everyone check it out. It's literally 1 minute and 4 seconds long, and it gives you a background as to what we're hoping to accomplish with this project.
Right. Fife Paranormal would be the YouTube page as well, Evie. So, and as I mentioned earlier, the edibles. All the stoners are listening.
I'm about to tap into a whole new market here.
There you go.
There you go.
This is the first ever New York Times best. He's gonna win a Pulitzer Prize because of
I would love the headlining article to be high on success.
Oh yeah, there you go.
Oh, here we go.
Yep, we can do it. So yep, we as always, there's so much you guys got going on. We want to get you and hopefully your father on one together and talk about maybe some investigations you had. We can share some EVPs or maybe even video clips of.
That would be awesome.
Yeah, I mean that's the advantage of doing video now. So, but we would love to do that. I do have to take a quick moment and remind everyone that next week you're going to want to listen to this one. Jake, you're really going to want to listen to this one. Next week, we have filmmaker, paranormal investigator, musical artist, so much more. I mean, the list
is a definite Renaissance man.
Yes, definite Renaissance man. And a brand new page that he's working on as well. So you guys are going to want to find out what that is. But of the Booth brothers, we will have Christopher St. Booth with us next week, live here on video. So it's going to be a blast. And do we have confirmation on the next one?
No, I got to talk to you about that one.
Okay, I'll hold off on telling you guys what's coming after Christopher. You'll just have to tune in to find out.
Oh, Jake, you really need to come back with all this again. I am
I'd
really,
love to.
I cannot wait to see this, and I am going to research this week. And well, we have our fabulous Snowmageddon again.
Yeah, that's what we've got here. I've actually just finished. I got a book on Guilford Courthouse, and it's the definitive book according to a lot of people. And I just finished it for the second time, and I got it in January, and it's like 400 pages long. So
Is that off of like Amazon or something?
I think it is off Amazon. It's called Long, Obstinate, and Bloody, which is how Nathaniel Greene described the battle to George Washington in a letter.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I really definitely. I've said this before to myself when I like going to the library, the actual library.
Same here.
And I have really got to read up on the the Revolutionary War, because I am so fixated on the Civil War. I really need to know what happened before.
We had a guy, and I was going to talk to you about him later, but we had a guy who wrote a couple of books on that war.
Oh.
And I believe I saw that he had a new book out.
Oh, you'll have to send me links to that.
Yeah, and I need you to send me a link to that book you were telling me you just finished reading.
Yeah, I can do that.
Yeah.
I don't miss any smells from any locations.
I really miss that. Our library is closed right now for renovation. We have an extremely old library.
Well, I like the smell of opening up the book and smelling.
Yeah, really. Our town was established in 1757, and I think the library is the first public school in Baltimore County. Maybe, I'm not sure. I can't remember, but I used to love the old part. They've added a new part to it, but it's just so cool.
Well, on that note, I want to end it so we can let all the others get to it. And I don't know what Jake's got planned on for the rest. So everyone that's listening and watching, thank you. And make sure you follow them on Facebook. Make sure you follow TMV Cafe. Get my fingers right eventually. Or Paranormal. That one. There we go. We're getting there. Paranormal. And we'll see you guys next time. Jake, thank you for joining.
Thank you, Jake. I am so happy that you came.
Oh, thank you so much for having me on. And for everyone who listened tonight, thank you all for not just listening and checking out our stuff, but for your comments too. I really appreciated them.
Yeah.
And stay away from the lemon juice. Yes.
Yeah.